What's up YouTube, Capital G here, checking out the brand new Infernity support that just got revealed coming out of Phantom Rage. Konami has actually done the unthinkable, guys. They are giving support to one of the most horrifying and terrifyingly powerful archetypes in this game's history, and they are doing it in a core booster set. You can just color me surprised at this point because I am shocked. I never would have imagined Konami would be interested in giving Infernity more support, because I've had the belief for years that Konami actually just hates this archetype. I mean, you look at the fact that it's pretty clear, in my opinion, Infernity have never been power creep. The cards like Launcher, Archfiend, Barrier, they're still ridiculously powerful, because for you new Yu-Gi-Oh players, you have to understand, ain't none of these Infernity cards, well, the old ones, none of them, the ones from 5Ds, are hard once per turns, and the combos that Infernity could pull off were legendary. That's why cards like Launcher and Archfiend, these cards have been like limited to one for basically a decade. This stuff was released in like 2010, and yet they're still limited to one. But yeah, new cards are revealed, and despite the fact that I thought it would be kind of hard to like have new cards be broken because everything is going to have a hard once per turn now, there actually are some pretty good cards, some cards that I believe Infernity players will be looking at and will play in this deck. So let's go ahead and start breaking them down. I'm going to start with the best card in my opinion, and this is Infernity Suppression. It's a normal trap card with a hard once per turn. Unfortunate, right? Infernity Barrier is like hard once per turn. What's that, Cap G? I don't know what that is. What does hard once per turn mean? It says if you have no cards in your hand, that's to be expected. That's just how Infernity works. You can activate this card the turn it is set. When your opponent activates a monster effect while you control an Infernity monster, negate that effect. Then if you do inflict damage to your opponent, equal to its life times 100. Okay. This card is scary as hell in my opinion, and it's for one very simple reason. This allows Infernity players to play around hand traps. This allows them to simply laugh at you when you activate Nibiru, or when you activate a very powerful hand trap that is obviously looking to stop one of their plays. They can essentially just flip this over after setting it and say, nope, you didn't stop me, I'm going to continue comboing off. And a lot of the most powerful hand traps in Yu-Gi-Oh, cards like Ash Blossom and Nibiru and Fantastical Dragon Phantasme, these cards are hard once per turn. So once your opponent negates it, you don't get another opportunity to use the card. It doesn't matter if it's not destroyed, if it's still in your hand, they're still going to be able to combo out unopposed. And the thing is, obviously, Infernity Archfiend has the ability to just search this card. So if they search it early enough in their combo, or if they just are lucky enough to hard draw it and they set it on the field, cards like Nibiru and some of the most powerful hand traps just aren't going to work against them. And in addition to that, if you're playing in time, they actually can just outright win, because this card has that random burn damage in it. So if they hit your Nibiru, like, that's going to be massive burn damage. What is Nibiru? Is he level 10 or 12 or something like that? That will obviously be a whole bunch of burn damage. So if I'm an Infernity player, I don't even think it's a question. I'm playing one copy of this card because, again, if I'm going first, it lets me push through hand traps. Even if your opponent doesn't have a hand trap, that's fine. I'll just set this alongside, 3 copies of Barrier and a break and just call it a day at that point, because it's still going to be a good card. Even if I'm not using it to push my plays through, I can just use it against my opponent to negate like one of their key monster effects. So this is a card that you just need to play if you're playing Infernity. Anyways, next up we have a new Synchro monster. Never forget that Infernity at its core is actually a Synchro based archetype. I think they only have one Synchro. I think it's just Doom Dragon. Well, prior to this card, yeah, I feel like they only have one Synchro, and Doom Dragon, he's inside the Infernity Barrier and all that good stuff. Anyways, this is Infernity Hell Archfiend. Don't expect the word hell to appear in any of these TCG cards. It's probably going to be Doom or something like that. Dread Archfiend. It's a level 6 Dark Fiend Synchro monster. 2200 attack and 1600 defense. It is completely generic, and it is, well, the first effect says, once per turn you can target one face-up card on the field, negate its effects until the end of the turn, and if you have no cards in your hand, you can destroy it. Second effect, if this card battles an opponent's monster, any damage this card inflicts to your opponent is doubled while you have no cards in your hand. Third effect is really pretty potent. A Dark Synchro monster summoned using this card as synchro material can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. So this is interesting because Infernity don't have a lot of go second type cards, or at least you really don't think about going second that much with Infernity. Maybe the Exceed days when they would just summon Exciton Knight over and over again until they blew your field up. That would be kind of like the power plays of Infernity going second, but this feels like a very strong card going second. And if you guys don't know, Infernity have no problem synchro summoning. I mean, you have very powerful tuners in the archetype. You have things like Avenger, you have cards like Beetle. I'm looking at this card, and not only can it negate one of your opponent's face-up cards, and more than likely you can find a way to also destroy that card. This card actually has insane synergy with 100 Eyes Dragon, right? Because what you can do is you can essentially maybe negate one of your opponent's cards and destroy it, and then synchro in the 100 Eyes Dragon. The 100 Eyes Dragon, since it's a dark synchro, is going to be able to get 2 attacks, and then you can also just banish this guy from the graveyard and then target, like, you get the effect. So you get to target an opponent's card and blow it up again. So basically you're getting double negation and double pops during that turn, and your 100 Eyes is a 3000 beater who can attack twice against monsters. So I definitely think that if you're playing Infernity and you're playing that, 100 Eyes combo or maybe Void Ogre Dragon, I think you gotta play one copy of this card because it has so much synergy with those cards. You're not gonna go first in every single duel, and I think this is a very powerful card if you are going second. Next up is Infernity Paranoia. It's a normal spell card with a hard once per turn. First effect says tribute 1 dark monster you control, that's a cost. Special summon 1 Infernity monster from your deck or graveyard with the same level but a different name, but its effects are negated. Second effect, during your main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target an Infernity monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Okay, so this card has potential, and by the way, I can just tell you guys right now, if this card would have been designed in 5Ds, like if this card would have been, released in like the Shining Darkness alongside the original Infernity cards, this would have been like probably a card that got banned, because I can tell you, number one, it wouldn't have been a hard once per turn because those didn't exist back then. And number two, Konami probably would have let you summon the monster and still use its effect. Like this card would have been absolutely ridiculous. But as it stands, we still have, we had those restrictions built onto it. I do look at this card and even know, because you think like, okay, Cap, this can summon Launcher and things like that, or it can summon Archfiend, but the monster's effect is negated. So like, what's the point? I do think that there's some value to the setup here, because being able to go like Armageddon Knight or Dark Grepher and then turn those into an Infernity Archfiend from your deck. Yes, the Archfiend effect is going to be negated, but just having access to your Archfiend at that point feels like that could be very powerful, or getting it from the graveyard. Even though, again, the Archfiend's effect won't be able to activate, I feel like, Infernity players they'll be able to come up with something, and they'll be able to use that. Like, I feel like this is a card that, on its surface level, people might say, oh, it's automatically trash just because you don't get the effect of the, monster summon. But I don't know. I just feel like Infernity players are just going to find a way to break this card. It feels like maybe a one-of in the deck. It feels like obviously a very watered down like Infernity Launcher, but they're not going to make another card as powerful as Launcher. Launcher got restricted to 1 after 1 format, so they're not going to have something like that. They're not going to print something like that, not in 2020, but this has potential. I think that this is a card that Infernity players could use in the future. Don't hold me to that, but I feel like it has potential. We have Infernity Conjurer, our first main deck monster. Level 3 Dark Fiend, effect monster, 1200 attack and 900 defense. Your second effect is a hard once per turn. First effect says if you have no cards in your hand, your opponent's monsters lose 800 attack. Second effect, if this card is in your graveyard and you have no cards in your hand, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. Okay, so the first effect is, to me, just kind of a throwaway effect. Honestly, I don't really think that this card is suited to stay on the field. Most Infernity Infernity monsters aren't, unless their names are Archfiend or Doom Dragon. They don't really sit on the field during your opponent's turn. The second effect is quite interesting though, because now this card kind of becomes fodder. Basically just having a free monster reborn on it. We know that Infernity can synchro summon. We know that they can link summon easily as well. Xyz summoning, they haven't really done that since Zexal, but this feels like this could be a solid one-up, mainly just because of that free monster reborn and the fact that this card never actually needs to hit the field for that monster reborn effect to actually be, you know, useful. So I can definitely see a free monster, like a card that reborns itself in Infernity for free. Like, I think players are going to be interested in that. Then finally, we have the obligatory trash card. This is Infernity Wildcat, level 3, Dart Fiend Tuner, 1400 attack, 0 defense. Both effects are hard once per turn. First effect says you can send one other Infernity monster from your hand to the graveyard. Special summon this card from your hand. Second effect, if you have no cards in your hand, you can banish one Infernity monster from the graveyard. That's a cost. Increase or decrease this card's level by 1 until the end phase. Okay, so this card is pretty much only for facilitating synchro summons. Basically, it doesn't eat up your normal summon, but that's really never been that big of a deal for Infernity. They a lot of times they don't even use their normal summon on Infernity monsters anyways. Honestly, like I think this card's kind of bad. I think that it's just a worse version of Dark Grepher. I think that the biggest redeeming stat of this card is basically that it's a tuner, but I think that cards like Beetle and Avenger are just better, to be honest. So I don't really think you're going to run this card, but the other cards all have potential in my opinion. So this is the one card you stay away from. The rest of the cards look very interesting and promising. Anyways, whatever you guys think of new Infernity support, you leave that in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.